My name is Grandmaster Jesse Kraai, and today we're going to talk about what it takes to make 1600chess.com. This is a very competitive level, and I've seen many players graduate to this level and beyond, and I think I have a sense of what they need to do. Now, something I want to stress is in the earlier videos in this series, I broke it down by skills, and we were talking about calculation, positional understanding, maybe development or time usage. All of those things are going to be important. But what I want to show in this video is that the skills like positional understanding, calculation, you're going to see that they're really kind of interwoven, right? They are interrelated. You're going to need to calculate and evaluate at the same time. It's no longer like I'm calculating and just like winning a piece or a pawn at the end of a variation. No, you have to be able to understand it. That's how competitive this level now has become. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this rating translation graph. The dojo has created this universal rating system, and you can see the different rating levels here related to the ChessCom 1. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this list of players here, and this is at the dojo, and this is these are the 12 players who've done the most work in this cohort. And the first thing I want you to see about this is players at the dojo can decide which rating system they would like to use. Only after 2000 do we demand you do an OTB rating. And I just want you to see that most of these are OTB. ECF is the English Chess Federation rating. And then we have a FIDE and, of course, some Lichess and ChessCom in there, too. As we go up the cohorts, we're going to see more and more OTB. Now, I think a particular struggle at this cohort level is players need to get OTB games in. And the reason is this, is even if you want to be a good blitz player, you have to have experience with deep thinking in a competitive environment. And I'm going to try to convince you of that in some of the games that we're going to look at. Now, we are going to look at Jules. He's done the most work, and he hasn't graduated yet, even though you can see he's graduated already 3 times before. And we're going to look at his struggle. In these videos, I always want to look at somebody who's really struggling to get to the next level, who's done a lot of work and is still struggling, because that really highlights to me what the difficulties are in making it to this next level. Okay, so we're going to pop over here, and this is Jules, and you can see over here on the right, that's his heat map. He has done an immense amount of work, and it's mostly green. That is tactics. But if you look here at his percentages of how much of each category bucket that he has done, you can see he's done most of the dojo work. For example, with the tactics over here, he's done all of the required mate and twos, and he's hit the benchmarks of the puzzle rush and the survival. The benchmarks just mean that if you hit this number, you have the skill level of the cohort above you, right? So it's a good benchmark to see tactical skill. He's done this. He's done that work. He's also done some good middle games of strategy, like reading this book, Winning Chess Strategies. And he's done all of the end game. Very nice. He's done the algorithms. He's read the books. And he hasn't done that much opening work, but I think we're going to see it's not the openings that's holding him back. It usually isn't at this level. Okay. The other thing I want you to see he's doing really well is he's got 46 games out of 40 classical games a year. 40 minimum is what we're saying to make progress. Now, I just want to stress, at my level, GM, I need to be playing at a minimum time control of 90 plus 30. And so this requirement is different for different cohorts. So, for example, Jules is often playing at a time control of 60-30, which is a little bit less onerous. I think people see that 40 games a year and they're like, oh, that's too much for me. But we really want to stress you need that experience of playing longer games. And I think, we'll see, this definitely also applies to Jules. Okay, so if you might remember, he had listed Lichess as his rating system, but we're going to see he's done some classical games, and it's in these competitive games that I think we're going to see, oh, this is the skill this player needs to develop. Well, by this, I'll be more clear in the coming examples. Okay, so let's get into it, and we're going to look at this first game, and here we go. Bishop d3. Now, from an openings perspective, this move is kind of known to be a little soft because black is supposed to be able to equalize with e5. Okay, fine. But you see, that's not his problem at this moment. He's playing g6, and now Jules is going to get this set up with c3. Fine. It's a little slow, but there's nothing wrong with it. Boom. Fine. Castles, castles, knight d7. And what I really want to stress is Jules is doing the work here. He's doing the annotations and just asking basic questions like, oh my gosh, what's going on with the knights over here? Okay, let me get rid of the arrows for a second. So Jules now plays the first move that I was like, oh, that's a little bit positionally suspicious. Now, I think what he's saying to himself is, I just need to get my pieces out. And if you're going to default to development, that's always a good thing to do if you don't know what to do. But the problem is the bishop is not clear belongs there. For example, it might be in the way of the rook someday, right? That might be a grief. Also, it's developed, but it's not clear it's actually doing all that much. Okay, so by the way, this is just an example of, let's call it positional understanding, because here, just something I know, is that a nice thing for white is to play a plan where we go rook e1 and we fix the knight. We got to fix this poor knight. Why is it bad? Because it got stopped by its own pawn. And bring it over to g3, where it holds this pawn and maybe can harass the black king later. But the main point of this whole setup is we're just going to contain black. We have played c3. We're going to blunt the bishop, and we're just going to sit on him. Okay? We're going to sit on him. White's a little bit better, but notice it's not like we're like immediately attacking the guy or anything. No, we got to sit on him and wait till he squirms. All right, bishop e3, and black starts an adventure. Now, what I want to say about this adventure is we shouldn't let him take the bishop. Now, letting him take the bishop, I mean, it has a lot to do with positional understanding. We could move it away, and the knight is just a tourist. Now, the prejudice against moving it would be, oh, well, I don't want to move my developed piece twice. But I just want to stress, like, well, oh, the knight is also a tourist there. He's going to have to go back, and h3 is a good move for us to play anyway. Okay, so first of all, defaulting to development, like Jules does here, not a bad thing, okay? Knight e3, fe, e5. And another great series of notes here. Now, I want you to see that he thinks for 11 and a half minutes here, which is too long for a time control with 60-30. Now, let's go to the time graph real quick. And I just want us to see that he is using the clock really well. Something about the playing OTB, unless you're in a fancy tournament with one of those boards that records the time, is you have to do it yourself. It's very worth it. And you can see here that Jules has a GM rating in terms of time. Okay, his opponent does not. Usually at this level, they will move too fast. And that's something that, from a competitive standpoint, you should be looking to take advantage of. Okay, so this move is a little funky, but I think if we were going to rationalize it, it would be to say, well, black maybe wants to do that someday, and if they do, we can whack him with a5. But it also speaks to the fact this 11 and a half minutes is like Jules doesn't know what to do, right? We should probably be putting our king on h1. We should probably be doubling on the f file, these kinds of things. Notice that it's not, even if we like black's position, and actually I want to explain why I like black's position, it's not that easy for black to do anything. Why do I like the black's position? Because this unopposed bishop is so strong on the dark squares, and in particular, if we ever try to attack black, it's going to be very difficult, because how do we ever get at the soft black squares around the king? Impossible. Very difficult to do, right? That's why there's a little bit of like positional knowledge that Jules will eventually get by playing these longer games, by doing the annotations where he's like, oh yeah, that unopposed dark square bishop, this is a good position for black. It's not the end of the world yet, but it's a good position for black. Okay, queen e7, queen e1, bishop h6. Now this is a little bit adventurous. To my mind, black should be thinking about his other pieces first. But okay, knight c4, and now another strange move, c6. Why is it strange? Because I don't think black really wants to do something like d5 anytime too soon. Okay, now a poor move, and Jules writes, I spot an opportunity. If we trade queens, white can win the d pawn and black will take the e pawn. What advantage will this bring, though? Am I just trying to break up the pawns in the center because they make me uncomfortable, right? So, couple things. What Jules should feel funky about here is that the knight is going to be misplaced over here. That's the first thing, the most important thing. There's all kinds of things that are going to happen, but we should really be like, oh, once my knight's there, I owe black a move to come back. All right, snip snop, d5, snip snop, knight e5. This all seems forced. Okay, and now check to the miserable king. And this position, to me, feels very dangerous for white. And I don't know if Jules senses it. Now, that's just because I know from experience, having played GMs in this kind of position, that the two bishops can really be massive. Why can they be massive? Because they cover both colors. They can cover so much ground. The bishop is much strong, is only not as good as the rook because it can only go on one color, but you got two of those bad boys and it can become a real mess. So, in terms of understanding, both players should feel now that the main job is for white to keep the position closed and black wants to open it. You will see, though, that both players at this level are going to be obsessed with winning the e-pawn, and that's not the key to this game. All right, rook e8. I love Jules's notes. He really is doing the work. After you do your notes at the dojo, you're allowed to take a look at the computer, and the computer says this is equal. I want to stress, from my personal sense of it, I would feel I was better as black here. Rook e8, though, I'm not thrilled with. I'd rather have had him have developed his bishop. All right. Now, notice what he is doing. He's obsessing over the pawn. I don't think this bishop g4 is it. Rook at e1, good move, simple and strong. Bishop h6. And now, I think we're close to solving most of our grief with a move like h3. If he takes, we'll have bishops of opposite color. It'll be very hard for him to do anything. And if he doesn't take, we'll bring that knight to d4 and have options of maybe playing e6 someday. Okay. Instead, we play this. Now, what's the grief? We're opening the position. No, we don't want to do it. Don't want to do it. So Jules is mad at himself for this bishop e4 move, but it's difficult to do anything else. And yes, we do need to trade that guy off. Okay, snip snap. Now, very important to think about, for both sides, the activity of the pieces. So, for example, bishops is a long-range piece. I like black's bishop here much better than the knight. Long-range piece in open board. White's king is worse. This pawn, yes, is a little weak. It's not the main feature of the position. The main feature of the position is the activity of the pieces. Black's king is better, for example. It's also very important that it's black's move here. So we're going to see black becomes obsessed with messing with the e-pawn, when what he should really be doing is thinking about a move like rook c8 to get active, attacking on the c file. So he messes with white. Great. Okay. Rook e7, a little passive. What is he going to want to do? He just wants to obsess about it and go rook e8 to try to win the pawn. We, though, while he's doing that, should be thinking of like, well, how can we get active ourselves? Rook d1 seems reasonable. We go rook e1. g3. I like h4 as well, just to stop that advance. h6, rook d5. I don't get it, right? I don't get it. What does it do? I don't know. h4 seems very reasonable. King g2 seems a thought, okay? we need to calculate about g5, for example. The issue with g5 is maybe we can play knight d4. That's the kind of thing we want to calculate. We need to be, at the very least, improving our king. All right? Rook d5 does nothing. King f7, and now full frustration. e6. And the milk has really gone bad because it's not just that you're losing the pawn, but you're freeing the rooks who were stymied and the bishop. So all of a sudden, black wins a pawn, and the position springs to life for black. So now we're toast. Okay, yeah, he says clear advantage black. I think it's just lost now. All right, so one of the things I want to stress, we're going to look at a second game too, is it was positional understanding and then maybe a lack of tenacity at the end, which led to the destruction of the white position. Also, if we look at the time graph, I think he stopped taking time here, taking the times because he was like, I'm toast. But you can see he's a little bit soft here on the time. I think actually if he was playing a competitive game, it would have dipped a little lower and his rating wouldn't have been quite that high. And it was that 11-minute think that really cost him in that respect. Okay, good. Let's go look at the next one. Now, what I want you first detail I want you to see about this game is he is again playing somebody who is moving too fast, okay? And at this level, you will find very often that players are unable to think. It's a skill, it's a muscle to be able to think and really go deep. If you don't have that muscle, you will resort often to impulsive decisions. Okay, and so just be aware of that at this level. You can farm a lot of points just by being able to think better than your opponent. Okay, so let's get into this game. Fine. Now, c3 is maybe a reasonable move. The grief for me, though, in looking at this from the white perspective, is if black gets all of their stuff developed, like bishop out, he's going to get a good French. So if white needs to understand that they need to use time, tempo, to do something to black before that all happens. Remember, bishop f5, e6, and I got a good French. Now, I don't know. I'll just give a plug for my course. I got a course on Chessable Aggressive Repertoire according to Dojo, has DC. We're messing with him before he can do something. Okay. So, bishop f5, f4, poor move. Why? Because now black just fully gets everything we ever wanted. Okay, boom, good move. Bishop b5, and he doesn't like rook c8 too much, but I think it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. c4, weird. I actually still like the black position after this move. But what I want us to see about this is it loses the French-style pressure on the d4 square. So a simpler move might have been, say, queen b6. We'll soon look to play knight h6 at some point. Notice we really have a carve-out on this f5 square. All right. Also, we want to just stress, besides the pressure that's lost on d4, we lost a tempo. Very important. Okay. Knight d2. I'm okay with this. I think knight h6 is maybe a little more flexible. h3. And I'm okay with what happens here. a6. Push him back. And now we get to trade off our bad bishop. Notice, even the bishop on f5, it's kind of like a cool-looking piece. All our pawns are on light squares, so that's why we have less mobility than the dark square bishop. Even see, he looks less proud, but ultimately that's our beast over there, the bishop on f8. Bishop g6 wastes a tempo. Fantastic annotation. It's that simple, right? g4, a little frisky, and what we're now going to see is obviously black is trying to organize some kind of white, is trying to organize a very hectic f5 plan. But he hasn't really developed his people before he's executing this. Okay, what's the problem with bishop c2 now? Well, first of all, f5 isn't a threat yet. So you are developing the white queen and giving white the ability to be one step closer to connecting his rooks. Okay, so h5. Now, let's read what he says, because what I want to stress about this is this has everything to do with positional understanding. So he says, another bad move. Rather than forcing white to trade pawns, after g5, black's chances of breaking free are even lower. White's pawns are suffocating black's position, and black is allowing it to happen. Also, this affects black's ability to castle. Why mess around with pawn moves like this when there are still 2 pieces at home? Now, here's a really interesting thing. The question of h5 is, if white ever plays g5, that would be a tremendous blunder because it gives away this square. White really, really wants to organize f5 later. Okay. Now, let's look at what happens. So, by the way, also, if he doesn't have to play, if white doesn't have to play g5, then in general, we do not want to make pawn moves on the king side. Why? Because that is our weak side of the board. Our pawns are pointing this way. We would like to attack over here on this queen side. Of course, yes, we have some development issues, right? But we can't be messing with our king side because, we don't have a lot of, if we move our pawns there, we will create weaknesses. So there's a lot of positional things here that come into understanding what to do. A very deep move here that would be dangerous, but at some point logical, is move the king over, walk him out. Hey, go to your strong side of the board. Okay. All right. That would have to be, that's obviously kind of a scary thing to do. Now, h5, king e2, knight g6. The knight doesn't belong there and probably needs to start getting smacked with f5. White, however, plays this one. Oh no, blunder. Positional blunder. Now, this guy's a tall pawn, as Silman likes to say. We have carved out this square. This bishop's amazing. There's no way for him to get at us. And it's very important to see that I don't think Jules got it yet, okay? Because he feels like, oh no, my game is terrible after g5. No, your game just went from poor to amazing. Also, time is no longer that important because he can't break you anymore. Fine move. I didn't understand h4, by the way, loss of tempo. Rook ag1, I don't know what it does. Queen d7. Now, you do need to figure this out. Simple, I don't think queen d7 is bad, but bishop e7 and castles wouldn't be ridiculous. Okay, here we go. Queen d7. Knight f1, okay. Now, what is he doing? He's going to g3, right? So, once he trades that knight, I want you to be ready to bring the other bad boy into it, okay? So, even now, this might look weird, but this isn't dumb because we can organize this kind of thing and just say, nobody. You ain't ever touching me on the king side. I got this beautiful knight. I will smack you with b4 later at my convenience. Okay? Again, these are all positional things that it takes time and experience to learn. And the one thing I really want to stress here is, if you're a Queen's Gambit generation player and you've made a bunch of progress like Jules, you're going to have a bunch of skills that you've developed, but you haven't got these positional skills yet. It comes with playing longer games especially, but also, reading some books and getting some annotations done, right? Getting a feel for how these positions work. And, you're a Caro Kann player, but then, hark, we're playing a French structure. That's one of the things that can happen when you play the Caro Kann. Okay, so here we go. b4. Knight, pawn takes, terrible move. Oh no. Oh no, terrible move. It's not just that we're giving him this knight f5 thing, but now we've done a terrible thing because we're in no rush to open the b file. We are in zero rush. And we, first of all, should have fixed our pieces before we played b4, but the bc is the real failure because now We're giving him the initiative on the queen side before we have developed our pieces. Rook b8, poor. We're not ready. We're not ready. Now he's going to take and come on over. And it's like, oh no. Oh no. He's very fast here. He tries to gum it up. But after a4, we're in big trouble. And rook a5 is a little bit like losing the pawn in the last game. Because there he was in a little bit of grief. But he kind of just like lost his mind. And rook a5, we're in big trouble, by the way. I mean, we're already in big trouble. But we could try to continue playing on with, say, here, here, and here, intending bishop d8 on rook b8. We're in trouble, but it's not, time to resign. Once we give him that, though, we're just totally toast. Now, one thing we want to see about the time graph that's a little interesting is he also stops taking score with the time, writing down the times at this move, because I think even during the game, he's like, well, that was it. I'm toast now. All right. So, in summary, what I want to stress here that was interesting to me, excuse me, let me get these images out of here, is interesting to me is that what you saw there was nobody's hanging pieces, right? As I said in the other videos, once you hit around 1200chess.com, we're going to see a lot less of that. No one's hanging pieces, and the decisive features of this game were mostly, I felt, positional mistakes, positional misunderstandings. And so what Jules has done is he's worked himself up to this very competitive level. That's great. And now I think one of the big challenges for him is like, forget that Lichess rating for a little bit. Move on to try to measure your progress with an OTB rating. And even if you don't do that, just realize, oh, right, these amazing games I'm playing where maybe I'm mucking it up, that's the kind of skill, like understanding of how to play these positions is really going to help me. Once you know how to play the positions too, you're going to make the moves faster. Let me stress, learning the openings at this level and even also beyond is mostly about getting a grip on how to play certain structures. What do I do in these positions? What's the dynamic of these positions, right? And with that, we would have won both of those games, or we would have at least stood a much better competitive chance. So there it is. How to make 1600chess.com. As you can see, it's becoming very competitive at this level.